out of all the cake shops in this damn town, I had to walk into this one. And she looked at me and she must have seen that I was easy prey because I did not have a voice. She decided to berate me and she just got louder and louder. And all I thought was, just take it, be obedient. And when she's finished, you go. Because that's what I did most of my life.
Hi, Jennifer. How are you?
Good, Patty. Good to see you again.
Yes, always happy to see you. And thank you for coming on the Break Time with Patty show. My dear.
This is going to be good.
It is. It is. And I came prepared. I came prepared. I learned.
And I too.
Oh, good. Well, you see, we're all organized, ladies.
Yeah.
My dear friend, Jennifer and I met at Stage University, where people get the skills they need to become unforgettable speakers. She was one of the speech coaches who has given me extraordinary feedback on 2 of my messages. And recently, I felt this uncontrollable urge to reach out to her and to ask her if she was willing to share her story with you and I. And lucky for us, she said yes. Without delay, let me introduce Jennifer Leone to you. When enough was enough, and facing her fear to speak up had to be tackled head on, everything for Jennifer changed. Now a certified speech coach and storytelling strategist for nearly 2 decades, Jennifer has created a reputation as a coach that finds the buried message in your story and help find the other half of your story not yet told. She is the director of her company, Talk Trainers, a professional member of Professional Speakers Australia, also known as PSA, and accredited the Martini Method facilitator, and she's on the facility of Stage Time University as a speech coach, as I mentioned. Jennifer lives with her husband, Paul, in Sydney, Australia, and is the firstborn of immigrant parents from Malta. Her clients are mainly from all around the world, whether they are celebrities or in corporate, to entrepreneurs, and to those who want to become a professional speaker. Jennifer has been a Toastmaster for over 20 years and the recipient of the Distinguished Toastmaster Award. She has 5 children, now adults and married. Bravo, bravo. And her 6 granddaughters remind her to worry less and giggle more. Her 7th grandchild, to be born in a few weeks in France, will be a surprise if it's to be a boy. Either way, they will be loved as much. Jennifer says she will work as a speech coach for as long as the good Lord gives her life. She knows her purpose in life, and helping others find the hidden gems in their signature story is what gives her true north. Finally, playing the part of nanny to her granddaughters gives her much enjoyment and pride. I have talked enough. Let's get started. Are you ready, Jennifer?
Thank you. Yes, I'm ready. Thank you for the introduction.
Yes. So to begin, can you please tell us a little bit about little Jennifer as a young girl? What was it like to be in her shoes, please?
It actually was a couple of months ago that we were cleaning out my mother's home, and I came across a few boxes of photos, and I picked up a photo of myself, and I have never ever seen this photo. And this photo is of me when I was 8 years old, and I'm at school. And when I saw this photo, it really took me back, because I didn't realize that I'd been photographed at that age as in school uniform. And I realized then that everything that had happened to me as a child, I really was a child, because I'm taking it on board now as the adult looking back. but I'm thinking like the adult looking back.
Mhm.
But when I looked at the photo reminded me, you were only a child.
Mm.
You were a child, and we forget that, because we can be quite harsh when we look back at ourselves and see the things that may have happened that maybe weren't so pleasant. And we have a different take on it. But when we realize that we were children, we were young, and we did what we did because we were children. And so that was really big. It was a very personal moment, and I've kept that photo, and it'll be always for me to remind myself that I was extremely shy, but now I look back, I know why. And I know why I'm shy. And I've been actually embraced it, because it's given me abundance of benefits because I am shy. But it's taken me a whole life's journey to get to that point, because when I look at that photo, the world hadn't yet told me, oh, you're not going to make it, or you're a loser, or nowhere as good as the next person. So the world hadn't told me that at 8. The world was pure, and the slate was clean.
Yes.
And life changed that, and it's taken a lifetime to look back and see the abundance of benefits that life has given me because of the things that have happened.
Wow. Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes, it's true. And the innocence and the pureness, is that how you say this in English, of a child, uncorrupted. And it's just the most beautiful thing. So basically, so you were shy, you said.
Yeah, and when I looked at that photo was the year that I wanted to enter a competition, a singing competition.
Yeah.
And the irony was, I actually knew even at that age that I could not sing, not even a gunpoint, could not sing. But I had this inner urge. Whatever this urge was, it was actually my guiding light. And I wanted to enter it. And because people have asked me, why don't you go into speech competitions? You do really well, you'd win. And I've never had a desire to do that. And I thought, well, where does this come from? Why do I not have this desire? Here I am wanting to help other people, but why am I not doing this? Why am I not competitive? And the photo, I could hear the voice in the photo go, remember the competition you went into? And I remember so clearly that when I was called to get up to sing, I knew when I got there that I couldn't sing, but I also knew I wanted to sing. And I sang. I remember looking down at a couple of the children, they were giggling at me, and it actually didn't bother me. And I looked way beyond their heads, and I just wanted to do what I had planned to do, and that was to sing. And today, when I look back, it's no irony the song that I chose, because the song that I chose was, blue, blue, my world is blue. That's all I wanted them to hear. And I did not know that this little 8-year-old wanted to say what she felt. And it was the only opportunity she had, because no one would have believed her at home. And I remember sitting back down, folding my legs, sitting down back on the floor, and the next person come up, and that person, I remember, nailed it, and it didn't bother me. All I still remember to this day is how I felt when I sat back down. I felt so good. And I realized that was my moment, my very first moment of what it was like to say what I feel, to get up in front of everybody to say what I felt. That is my beginning. And as I said, it took a lifetime to get back, to that confidence to say what I felt, because it actually made a difference, a personal inner difference to me, that I got that. I realize now I didn't follow singing down the path of singing, but I realized I still say what I need to say and how I feel, but I do it through speech.
Yes. Oh.
So, yeah. So that photo reminded me of the innocence of how actually young I was. But it also reminded me that today, when I help others who want to compete, and wholeheartedly I'll do what I need to do to help them in competing, I understand their journey, but I also understand mine, because I really don't have a desire to be the best in the world, but I do have a desire to be the best for the world. It's a different desire.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And because of that, now I'm okay with it. Instead of asking the wrong question, why am I not like a person that can compete?
Mm.
So it's always been an inner thing. That's why I always like to, look deep into people's stories, because I found we're holding the treasures in there,
Yeah.
and they need to come out, and
Yeah.
it'll free us.
Yes, it will. And I'm just curious, in that room when you sang that song, did you have anybody cheering for you or some family members or?
No. It was in the class.
Okay.
I can still feel the carpet on the floor. I can still feel, when I can still see the two people where they were on to the left of me that were giggling the entire time I sang the song. And it actually didn't bother me. And I thought, wow, I didn't realize back then, but it was more important for me to say what I needed to say than be affected by what people were doing to me. Yeah. So that's taken me all its lifetime to get back to uncover how profound that moment was. That I really, when the voice inside of you, because the voice back then must have been louder than the voices of those children laughing at me, because the voice inside of me then it didn't allow that to affect me. But life goes on, and things happen in life, and then all of a sudden the world gets louder, and the voices there get louder, and you shrink.
Yes.
And it can take you up to a lifetime to find out. You've got to find your voice and be so louder that anything on the outside of the world doesn't affect you. And that takes a lot of work, a lot of courage, to willing to find, why is this happening? And it's worth finding that journey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and it is. But what I find amazing is that you were so young, because I'm thinking back at I have a lot of nieces. I have 4 nieces, and they're very self-conscious, even if they have not been wounded or traumatized by the world yet, but they still know. Anyway, I just find that it's just beautiful that you were able to just tap into that, and I'm happy that you were able to get back to that, even if it was many, many decades after that.
Well, because when I even look back into that, I thought, well, why out of all the songs? Because really it wasn't as popular, that song back then, but they would have had to have meant something to me. And I realized that it actually did, because the world was blue. If I go home and told my mother what was happening, with my uncle, and taking my innocence for so many years, there was a reason to say why my world was blue. And it's easy to judge from today's world, oh, that's horrible and that's cruel. But we need to go back to the times that it was. And in the 60s, everything was swept under the carpet. Everything was hushed. I remember coming home from school, and we always used to walk through a park. And I was walking with a neighbor, another girlfriend of mine. And out of the blue, it was just like a movie. Out of the blue is this old man that comes out in a long trench coat and, opens his trench coat and flashes. And all I remember is I saw it and she didn't. And I said to her, look down, we need to run right now all the way home, which we did. And I remember the first person I wanted to go to was to my mother and tell her what had happened. Now, I felt free and open to tell her what had happened. But remember, these are different times. They were different times. And I told Mom, and she looked at me and she said, did you see anything? And I said, yes, I saw everything. And I got the biggest hit. And that's when I realized, to protect me, I needed to be now quiet, because I knew that once I opened my mouth, there would be repercussions. And things changed again. So and as that may sound awful today, and it's sad that it happened, it also is an absolute blessing that it happened, because I began to learn more about me and observe the world from the world of silence and understand it. Wow. So it had its purpose, and I've made sure that I found the other half of that incident, and not leave it at that. Yeah.
Oh, Jennifer, thank you for trusting me to
Mm.
share this right now. Those are not easy subjects, and they're so important to talk about. There's so much abuse, that happens out there. So many, the innocence of so many has been taken away, and it's just those things keep repeating themselves. Those are patterns, and they're generational curses. You could call them whatever you want, but those things keep repeating themselves, and we need to talk about it. And like, for instance, I've had incidents happen to me as well when I was younger. And it took me until I was 30 some years old to tell my mom. And she was so upset, Jennifer, so upset. She goes, "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me?" And I said, "I was afraid you would be upset with me. I was afraid. I felt like I did something wrong. I felt like it was my fault." So there's a lot of guilt that comes with something that you have nothing to do with, basically.
And to be honest to the times as well, they say that once they've heard it, but they may not have, if you actually had said it, they may have acted differently, because they wouldn't, a lot of them wouldn't have known how to handle that. Or they would be so shocked by it, because it would rock their world, particularly if it's someone in their family. It's going to change everything. So I get that, and I understand that. But spending a whole lifetime working out, well, why did that happen, and what did I get from that? What was the benefit for me to experience that? So once I stack so many benefits of who I am now because of it, I've dissolved it. I've dissolved the pain, dissolved the anger. And now I'm actually, I'm in gratitude and grateful that it has molded me, made me who I am. It's given me, powers that I feel for me are such a huge benefit as a coach. Because in those times of silence, I got to learn a real lot and watch other people, how they act and how they talk, and watch their body language. These are the traits I need as a coach. When I'm listening to a client, I've got to watch for everything. It's not just what I hear; it's what they have implied from what they've said. These things you do when you're living in silence. You get real good at that. So, and it was only literally last week that I sat with Mum and I told her a few more things. And she was in a different place. So each time in their life, they will be in a different place. And it's up to us to find, when we feel comfortable, to feel when they are ready to hear it. And I just, and I said certain things, and I said, Mum, there was a reason why I never sent my children to a particular religious school, because of this. And she sat and she was shocked. Right, but she could take it now, and it was different. It was such a pleasure. Just, what we really wanted. I just want you to listen. I just want you to listen. And she said, it now makes sense. I now understand. But I felt liberated. The fact I felt that comfortableness that I could tell her. And I go, Mum, you know why I never did this, and I actually lived from this particular religious school across the road from my house, and yet I traveled 10 minutes away to take my children to different schools that were non-denominational. I said there was a reason, and I told her the stories. I told her the stories of her so-called friends, the fathers, who were inappropriate, who have now long gone. But I never said it with any blame. So I actually helped her to listen. And I didn't come from any anger. It is what it was. But yeah, she now listened and she could understand. Yeah.
Oof. So much damage has been caused in the name of religion, and it's just actually just humans. Humans can be awful creatures, and
yeah. And the irony is, and I'm not here to blame. You're going to find fault in everyone, so it's not like I'm bagging any particular religion. But the irony was that it was only a few years ago that I gave a a presentation at a conference, and I had no idea that in the conference there were priests and nuns in the room, because a majority of them weren't wearing what we would have called, the habits. They were just lay people, and one of them called me up later and wanted me to train their priests, because I was so surprised that they were priests that were in, nuns that were in the room. And the irony is they paid me well. I sent my proposal, it was accepted straight away. And I said, let me get this straight. You want me to help priests be better at delivering their sermons? And they said yes. And I said, would it be fair to say that you're losing business because some of you are pretty boring? And he said yes. But I also got I was nervous. I was so nervous because I thought, here I am, I'm going to be the only woman in this room. There's going to be 45 priests. I've not been to their seminaries. I don't have that education. But I remember telling my husband before I left, because all I was worried about, okay, what am I going to wear? What am I going to do? Well, I was actually really nervous. And he said, calm down. And I said, you know that they're going to tell me, who are you? You don't know anything about the priest or da-da-da. And he said, yeah, you're right. But he said, they don't know what you know. Remember that when you leave the door. And it was a little man just before I walked on who shook hands with me and introduced himself. He said, I'm really looking forward to this. He said, I'm the Archbishop. And I went, whoa. I'm thinking, I've got the head poncho here now. Right. But I was also prepared, and I knew what elephants would be in that room. We're not here to be show ponies. Who do you do that? I knew them all, and they were ready and they were waiting. And I could not have been any more honest than I was when I showed them what opportunities they were missing out when they had that opportunity to give their sermons. And anyway, so I spent 2 hours with them, and it was that little man, elderly man, who was the Archbishop, that came. Now, he taught me a lesson that day. He shook hands. Thank you, Jennifer. He said, that was actually the pep talk we needed. We needed this. But he taught me a lesson because he took the most notes, asked the most questions, and he was the leader. So what does that say? That are we willing to continue to learn? Are we willing to continue to ask questions, whether it be in our personal world or whether we be in speaking? We will never know it all. And that should excite us, because it then teaches us there are so many more possibilities of new things to learn. And it keeps regrowing for us. So, it was interesting, but I also thank the Lord that what an experience that was, that it ironed out the creases of my past. That who was to tell this little girl, one day you would stand in front of them and show them how they could better connect with their people. Wow. And to me, out of all the things that I've done some amazing things, but to me, this will always be the feather on the cap. They don't know that. But yeah, who would have thought? Yeah. So that's why I trust in learning, because it will start to uncover, under every layer, what magnificence, we all hold. But we've got to get the guts to want to do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
We do. We really do. Yeah.
Because we're not going to always like what we hear and see, but eventually around the corner that we haven't yet traveled or seen, there will be the magnificence.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we now understand why you lost your voice early on, and it took you all those years. But was there like a turning point that made you say, enough is enough, I'm turning my life around? Or
yeah, there was, because it was when I was dating my husband, and I decided to do a birthday party for him, and I prepared all the food. Being the European that I am, love to do all the cooking, but I ran out of time to make the cake, so I decided to go down into the town, and I walked into it was a little French cake shop. And I brought my 8-year-old daughter with me. And we looked around and we finally picked the cake, and she was about to put it in the box when my daughter, Emily, said, "Mom, ask the lady to put Happy Birthday Paul on the cake." And I did. And at that moment, this woman froze, just like steel. And she said, "You want me to put Happy Birthday Paul on this cake?" I thought, well, and I had sunglasses on. And I said, "Is that a problem?" And she said, "You're Jennifer, aren't you?" And so I took my sunglasses off and I went, "Oh, do you know me from somewhere?" Because I'm feeling now really awkward. And she said, "I'm his mother-in-law," because this was Paul is my second husband. And all my head was saying, out of all the cake shops in this damn town, I had to walk into this one. And she looked at me, and she must have seen that I was easy prey, because I did not have a voice. At that age, when I walked into that shop in my early 30s, she decided to berate me, and she just got louder and louder. And for whatever her insecurities were, she thought I was the blame. And all that could come out of my mouth was, "I met Paul 18 months after he's been divorced. I have nothing to do with it." That's all I said. And then I remember the tingling of the bell, that somebody walked into the shop, and this poor man walks in. We just wanted to buy a little cake and go. And as soon as she saw him, she thought she could put her volume up even louder. And I took it. All I remember was that she took me back to the child. I needed to be silent and obedient, and I needed to take it. That's all. I went back there. And I just had my hands on the box of the cake. And all I thought was, just take it, be obedient, and when she's finished, you go. Because that's what I did most of my life. And I am, as much as the time I hated her with a vengeance. And it was the first time I met her. I remember taking the cake, and I just said, "I'm sorry, madam, that you've taken it out on me." That's all I could say. Now, I got in the car, and Emily's going, "Mum, you all right? You all right?" And we had three traffic lights before I got home, but I just, was crying, just kept crying. And I thought, okay, she made me feel like crap. She made me feel like dirt under her feet. But by the time I got to the gate of our home, I thought, why are you really crying? Be honest. Why are you really crying? And that's when I had to stop and take it. And I swallowed deep, because I said, "You don't have the guts. You just don't have the guts to stand up. You've had enough, haven't you? Had enough." And that was enough, I can assure you, because that day, by the time I opened that door, I thought, that's it. That's it. I'm going to find my confidence. I'm going to face this fear, and I will never have anyone make me feel like that. So she has no idea what she did for me that day, has no idea. In fact, today it's a different situation when I bump into her. And one day I'm going to take that moment where I'll actually shake her hand and go, "You have no idea the blessings that were given to me on that day." Because that day I decided I'm going to join Toastmasters. And as it turned out, they were holding a meeting across the road from my house. I had no idea. And, I've been in Toastmasters for 20 years. I had no idea when I walked in there that this is where I would be today. So she actually guided me to my true north, unintentionally. So can you see that I could have wasted so much of my time thinking, she made me feel like dirt. She made me feel like a nobody. And I could have gone and taken the path of being really angry with the world. But I just wanted to go back to the girl that was sitting on that carpet, who said, "I felt really good now that I said what I said." Now I needed to go somewhere to help me find that courage to get back there again. And that now I tell the story, but there is no pain. Sure, there's regret. Should it have been that way? But I actually have regret. So I've dissolved. There is no pain to this, because what she gives me now has changed me. And also it's given me the gift to pass to somebody else. I want people to have what I found for me. And when I see people still staying in anger and regret, and their course of actions in their life are based on that, my God, they will never, ever get to see around the corner where the magnificence is waiting. You don't see it, but it's there, it's waiting. But there is a hell of a journey to get there. Mm-hmm. But I guarantee you, it's like the promised land. It's worth waiting. It's worth going there. And when I work as a coach, my job now, my mission is not only just to help them speak and have the courage to speak up, but there is another half to their story. There is another half to the story. It hasn't yet been told. And I've seen when I show them that, when they see sheer gratitude from the fact maybe they were abandoned and they've hated it and resented it, and I see the ultimate blessings that they've received because of it, and everything they thought they never had wasn't missing, it just came in different forms throughout their life. You see that inner smile, that one that comes from the heart, and they realize nothing was ever missing. It came to them in different forms. Oof. So that is what moves me. That's I can work all day and be exhausted, but the minute I've got an opportunity, get up in the morning to help someone, mm-hmm. that one is, I'm not tired. I'm always ready, mm-hmm. always ready, because I know what possibilities it will do for you. Mm-hmm. Don't live in that moment where you're trapped because you thought someone did this and did that to you, and because of that you rely on that to be who you are, but not who you were meant to be.
Jennifer, oh my goodness. So actually that was going to be one of my next questions. I don't know if you want to add anything to this, but I want to ask you right now, because again, I always think of the hurt people, and the heal people. I'm sure you've heard those. And clearly you're a healed lady, a fantastic lady who wants to heal others as well. Because that's what you're doing. When you're helping people uncover their story, it is a form of therapy, technically. Let's say someone has suffered from abuse, whether it's verbal abuse, like what you suffered at that at that pastry place, or wherever it's any form, physical abuse, any form of abuse. And they've remained silent for years, like you did, decades, okay, just to keep the peace. And it's been so long, nobody would believe me, but they're still in this right now. They're trapped. What would you like to tell them right now?
If you feel trapped and if you feel angry, then it's just like you being in a car and looking to see how much petrol you have left. You know that in a car without the gauge, you don't know how much petrol you have. You need that gauge. So when you feel those times when you're down and you're angry and why did it happen, and that's your gauge, your human gauge, that's telling you you need to now reset, you need to now rethink, and maybe ask the questions, how did it serve you that this had happened? Because we all see the downside, and we can live in the downside, but we never look at, well, what good came from it? What benefits come from this? That's the question. When I'll give you an example. I worked with a client who most of his life, because his father had abandoned and walked out of the house when he was very young. And here he is, a man now in his late 40s. He still is angry and hurt when he recalls it, how he was being abandoned. And I asked him the one question he had never been asked. What would you have done had your father stayed? He had never contemplated, because he thought, I don't have this. I don't have the father. I don't have the guidance. I don't have, and I don't have, and I don't have. And when he started to recall the other half of the story of everybody that came into his life gave him all the components that he needed that a father would give a son. Different men that came in his life, and he credited it that each and every one of them had their father-like attributes that made him who he was today. So I said straight away, can you see that it came in a different form? It's like water and ice. Ice is still water in a different form. And he saw that nothing was ever missing because he got it all in a different form. So when I asked the question, well, what if he had stayed? He then knew exactly the life he would have had, and it would have never have been the one that he was actually given.
Wow.
He would have been a drunk, and he would have beaten on my mom. We would have been kicked out. He knew where the road would have taken him. But instead, society tells you, be angry at this and stay angry at this. And only focus on what you don't have. Well, it's like living with one eye open and one closed. You don't see the other half. It's like buying a book and the person tears off half and go, here, read only half. Your story has two sides. Flip the side, because there is the other side to your story. Flip the page. And I can't begin to tell you that moment when he saw that he actually had everything he ever wanted. And yes, it came in a different form. And he realized how better off he was.
My goodness.
He actually had gratitude. And here's this man, with tears in his eyes, realizing, I'm going to change my narrative. He didn't abandon me. He actually knew, his father knew enough that to stay, they would never have had the family life that they had without him. And he actually had love and gratitude. That's why I want to push the other half, because the other half of the story has the answers. And it gives you, the other half of the story gives you the peace that you're looking for. So that's why I work with people's stories, because I'm still continuing to work on my own. That's why when I found that photo in my mother's box, it wanted to make me ask the questions and remind myself I didn't have to be so hard on myself. I was 8. I can see my innocence. The photo shows me my innocence. I did not know what was going on. I did not understand. By the time you're 12, you do, but at 8, you don't. So it was fair to feel like I felt, instead of me looking back as the adult. How could I judge myself? I wasn't an adult. I was an 8-year-old. And sometimes you see it as a form of affection. You don't understand. So it's fair to look at the whole picture of your experience. So that's why I'm so moved when I help others, and I use the DeMartini method, where we look and we become grateful for the experiences that we have, so that we can dissolve that pain. And you can see, when I get a speaker that wants to get out there and share their experience and help the world, well, I ask them why. Because if we don't uncover deep down their why, then it's not going to be clear to the people in the room that hear their story.
Oof.
Yeah. So, and I have been blessed with listening to some unbelievable stories. There's a woman who lives in another state. The news people did a documentary on her. She attempted suicide, and she was here to tell the story. And in this documentary, they had now changed the laws in this state, and now have big signs on the bridge, because she jumped over a big bridge. It would have been like in San Francisco, that type of a bridge. They now have signs on the bridge to call Lifeline to get help. They also have rails and guards because of her incident, because she was one of the very few that made it. Now, she, in the documentary and in her book, she tells the story where, because everybody wanted to know what made you push over the edge. and she said that she had an altercation with one of the women she worked with, and she was this woman was working for her. So here was this woman that was the boss, and she had this altercation, she said, and it just took her to such a dark place that she thought she would go to lose her job. And she went home, and within the weeks her depression grew and it got worse, and all she thought was that financially she was going to be better off without, by not being there, her family would be better off. So she attempts this and she jumps the bridge. Now in the documentary, it was never, two things were never asked. What were you thinking when you jumped? Because it's a long way down. And the other, what did that woman trigger in you? Because it's hard for me to understand. We all have bad days, but not that bad that we want to do that. And when we worked through it, you know, she shares the thoughts that she had never ever recalled until I asked her, that she felt this inner peace. It wasn't until she hit the water, at the very moment she hit the water, a boat went past, and the captain at that very moment just turned his head and saw her head bob up. And that's how she was saved. But I said to her, when that woman was berating you, where did that take you? That was the question. And out comes this story. And she says, I felt lost. I said, well, where does lost take you? She said, I felt abandoned. Where does that take you? Back to being a little girl. Where does that take you? She said, the day my father died, my mother walked out, and I'm 8 years old. Oof. I had to fend for my little sister who was 2 years old. And she does not realize until that moment that it wasn't just the bad days at work that this woman made her feel inadequate. It was what she triggered in her. And you can't believe the joy and the love that this woman now has, also for her mother, and when we work through the story. But I said to her again, and tell me, what do you do now for a living? And she says, in recruitment, I have a business. I get people the right jobs. And I said, well, that's no coincidence. I said, because you know how important it is to have work-life peace. And this is exactly what she does. And she realized the link. It was coming from because she had to take care of her little sister and, change her nappy and feed her. And she said, I was left alone to take care of her. I was abandoned. And she wanted a home. And that's exactly what she does for the people she works for. She wants their work life to feel like home, to feel safe. So that's why I do what I do, so that other half of their story helps them. You know, it's not in the way, it's on their way once they open it and they look at it. So that's why I'm always moved, because I see the brilliance when I see them. You see this inner glow, that it finally makes sense. The half of the story that they didn't look at, that was always there, because I don't put anything there. All I do is show them where the light is to turn that light on. That's it, and it's there. Everything they need is there. And she tells now, she actually tells the story of where this woman at work, the place that she took her to. And now it makes sense when people hear why she was so moved, to end it, but it wasn't the answer.
Yes, there was more.
It wasn't it. There was more.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, Jennifer.
Yeah, so that's why, as I said, until the Lord gives me, till my last breath, I will do this, because we don't have to live half a life. We don't have to live in the part that makes us angry and stay angry or feel as if we missed out, because we're undervaluing what we are capable of doing and what we may be doing now that's of great value, to others. Because if we're like that man who only said, I've been abandoned, where now he sees a huge difference to his world. He's ever so grateful.
Yes.
That it also that his father, out of love, knew that was the one thing he left that he could do. He would have been better off without him. And he didn't think that.
And you know what, Jennifer? Oh, there's so many beautiful things. I cannot wait to rewatch this again. Jennifer, sometimes, yes, people hurt us, and then we find it within ourselves to let go and forgive them. Okay. Let's say somebody can get themselves to forgive their abusers. But I find often it's the hardest is for us to forgive ourselves. And do you have any advice for someone who's struggles with holding grudges even towards themselves, or do you put that in the same category? Sure.
Well, if I go back to what had happened to me, by the time my uncle died in his 80s, and only my brother and sister knew what was going on at that point. And I remember, to be obedient, I went to the funeral. I went to the funeral because my parents didn't know. But I have to say something quite funny, because, and I thought it is actually the universe, because sometimes we get so tensed up and bottled up that something has to be released. And I remember I had nobody knew, just my brother and sister. So and inside of me I was feeling like, that rebellious, if they only knew, right? That was inside. The outside, quiet and obedient. And I remember the priest came out, and it's not his fault, but you just, when you look at somebody, but then when they open their mouth, you're so surprised, whether it be their voice or their accent. And because I was in this state, I didn't see it coming. And he opens his mouth to deliver his sermon, and he has a super high pitched voice, and he has a really strong accent. And it was just at that moment, it was like releasing the tension.
Okay.
And I just did a small little giggle. And my daughter next to me, now an adult, she looked, and just the look on her eyes was, well, I didn't see that coming. She giggled. And because we're now in church, I had to put my head down, and I'm holding my mouth. I remember my husband looking in disgust, and I'm doing this. And I knew that if I let go, if I released my hands, I would have done the biggest laugh. I think it was all the tension. I remember my daughter had to get out first, and I followed her, because the two of us would have just exploded. And this man puts his arm around us, thinking that we were crying.
Oh.
And I remember going out, and I remember saying, thank you, I needed that. I needed to release that tension. But having said that, when it came to the burial, I had already written a letter and told no one. And I knew it was going to be a big thing, because I thought, people are going to ask questions or be curious. And I thought, no, this is what I have to do for me. And actually, the letter was very simple. I know what you did, and I play no blame or fault in this, and let the good Lord judge you. It's not my place. And I remember it going down, the coffin going down, and I just leaned over, and I knew that I'm going to stand out, but I was back to that kid. I need to say what I need to say, but it's in a letter. And I just dropped it.
Oh.
And Patty, when I dropped it, I dropped everything that went with it. Everything went with it. So my brother and sister could connect the dots and knew what it was. But when I did it, and I knew that the soil would cover it, it's gone. It's not mine anymore. I'm free. It's done. It's done. It's done. And that's it. I don't have There is no feeling. It's completely neutral. There's an absolute blessing of everything I now do because of what I had to go through.
Oh.
And, and it wasn't until years and years later that Mum said, I thought there was something.
Mm.
Yeah. But that's as much as she could handle.
Yes.
And some things you've got to walk away from.
Yes. But you've said your piece. Oh,
Yeah.
that was incredibly brave what you did. My
Yeah.
goodness. And I could imagine the weight, the heaviness that must
Yeah.
have lifted. Is just
Because I waited for the right moment.
Mhm.
I also waited. I knew that it had to be down deep for me to drop that, because I know it had to stay with him and not with me.
Oh.
Because it was still a burden in my bag. Once I let go of that, it was, and I very rarely even share this story with people, but it was actually really symbolic.
Mm.
Some things, whether you sing it, speak it, write it, you've got to say what you feel.
Mm.
Just, ask the question, where are you coming from when you do it? So when it comes to, I need to accept it, it happened. Nobody needs to know all the details. That doesn't matter anymore. But what did it give me in return for what it took?
Mm.
When you have the courage to see what it gives you, then it's dissolved.
Mm.
It's down there, it's buried, it's gone. So when I see them and they use it as their badge of honor, I walk away.
Mm.
It's not that for me.
Mm.
It's not that.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you for
But
this.
yeah, as I said, not something I share, and nobody knows to know all the details. We can all figure it out.
Yeah.
That's not that will never be the issue. But it's also taught me who I don't want to be, and I'm also grateful for that too.
Mm.
And when I walked away from that cake shop, I know who I did not definitely want to be, and I also knew that I would never, because that wasn't in my other oath, I would never treat anyone and make them feel the way that woman did.
Oh.
So again, another gift.
Mm-hmm.
Another gift.
What not to do.
Yeah. So we're worth fighting for.
Mm.
We are worth fighting for. And if you're wanting to be a speaker to tell your story, then you're worth working on you first. Because if you're only using the opportunity to make others work on themselves, we will eventually see through that. We will. But when you see that you can work through what you can work through, you can see the inner intent is, I'm willing to do what I need to do for me, but I'm also so willing for you to help because I can see what it can do. So that's when we've got to be congruent. It's like, sometimes I get speakers that want to, their message is, how to make millions, and yet they're nowhere near it. So it's not congruent. And it's the same in our own lives. Yeah, it's you've got to work on you first, so that you can understand why and how and the benefit and the drawbacks of staying where you stay, so that you can give a story that's so wholehearted and it's a full book. And the people want that wisdom, because today everything can be very lopsided. Yeah, it takes courage to say, I want to pick the other half. The other half of my story, it's going to take guts to look at it. I guarantee you it'll be worth it when you do. It will be worth it. So that's why, I share that. And then you don't stay angry. That's, to me, the tragedy, that you stay angry, that you use that as your shield, either to block people out or to block from ever finding your real purpose. Yeah.
beautiful, Jennifer.
Mm.
Whew. You're a very, very busy lady. I don't have to tell you this. You're a mother, the director of talk trainers, a grandmother, wife, speech coach, a friend. How do you stay grounded and balanced in all of this? Please do
All
share.
right. Well, for me, is I know what I want and I know what's important to me. So, we all have our own list. We all have our own values. And if you were to ask the question, where do you spend your most time or your most money in? And there are two areas for me. I spend a lot of time in the kitchen because I love being there, and I love the fact that when we cook the food and have people over and have family together, that's big for me because when I look at the memories of my past, there were some real happy memories in that, and I wanted to create that. So it was never all bad, and I can see now it draws our families together, and we talk, we make memories. So I know that is a high value for me, family, but I also know it's a high value for me to help and be that coach. Right. When I do the two together, I can see that I'm balanced and I'm in my happy place. And you've got to find, where do you spend your most time in that you do so well in? And that's where you dedicate. So if someone says to me, oh, let's go out, to a picnic. And if that's the day that I've got family coming over, I will tell you, I'm sorry, I'm busy, because that's a priority. And if I've got to do calls at 3 and 4 in the morning, get up to do calls, I've got overseas clients, I do it because that's where my value is as well. I'm not tired. It's not an effort because it's what I love to do. It's an absolute, sure, at times you think, oh, I've got to get out of bed. But the minute you speak and you're in it, in your zone, it's your happy place. So you've got to find what it is for you. There's what you value, and be consistent with that. Nobody will break me out of those things. If they come first, they will come first, and you will know it, that they come first. And then, because otherwise the world continually dictates you. I know what's important to me, and that's important. So that's it. And I love now. I've got my office here, but I've got the kitchen right next to me. I'm in my element. And there was one of my clients once. He said, "Oh, I liked how you coach." He said, "Because you're always using life's lessons in the kitchen, to teach." And the irony was that day I was between coaching calls, and there was 1 hour break. So I thought, from running up from my training room up to the house, I thought, great, I've got 1 hour, I'll do the cooking, prepare all that so that later on food's ready when the family comes home. I've been trained in a Catholic school. We always wore an apron, always, and I still wear aprons. So when I walked back down to meet my client, who was 10 minutes early, I shook hands with him, and he said, "Oh, I like the look." I had no idea I had my apron on. And that's when he said to me, and that I got to thank John that day, because he changed it for me. He said, and I died with embarrassment because here I am trying to look professional. And he said, "Don't get me wrong, and don't take this the wrong way." Well, I thought, okay, it looks like I'm going to be taking something the wrong way now. But he said, "It actually suits you that you wear an apron." And I go, what? No. He said, no, hear me out. He said, when you're teaching, he said, you're just teaching, whether it's through, life's lessons to your family. And he said, it's just so you. Wow. And I realized you are actually right. It is, and I'm not ashamed. I was before. I was embarrassed. Oh, I've got 5 kids. Oh, I'm embarrassed. No, it's my badge of honor for me. And in fact, when I used to do my keynote address in the beginning, I would tell the story and put my apron, because I say to the audience now, what's the apron you wear when you get up in the morning? Is it you? Is that apron, that figurative apron you wear, is it you, who you are? Because I thought, you know what? It is me. It is the apron. I live in the kitchen. I have 5 kids. I had 3 stepkids. It is who I am. It's the lessons I've learned. Once I embraced it, it's like I said in the beginning, your voice, it gets louder on the inside. And so does your mission and your vision.
Mm.
No, there's no voice louder than mine now on the inside.
Mm. I feel like saying amen to that. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So so it was always called the Apron Story.
Mm-hmm.
And I received a letter from a man in New Zealand who was a journalist, and he said, "I want to thank you for the apron story." He said, "I've changed my career. I want to wear the apron that's me."
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And in fact, I collect aprons because I've got aprons from all around the world and clients that have bought me aprons. And I thought, nothing beats
Yeah.
being who you are, who you choose to be.
Mm.
Nothing beats it. Like, I don't have to compete and compare with anyone.
Mm.
Sure, I'm different. And so is the other. We're all different, but you got to, love who you are. And that's what people will see.
Yes.
They will see that when you're okay with that. So, when I was wanting to cut it in the corporate world, I thought, wow, they're going to see I don't look corporate, because so many people told me in the industry that I look too wholesome. So, I saw that as the downside. And I can't begin to tell you the work that I get from CEOs and chairmen and all sorts of people who say we feel comfortable. And I thought, well, comfortable wins in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Having the apron of who you are wins in the end.
Mm.
That's all that matters. So, yeah, again, didn't happen overnight. It takes a long time to figure out who we are, is who we got to be worth working on.
Mm.
Yes.
Ooh. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, so many, so many beautiful things. And I'd like to ask you something. You mentioned all those children, the 5 children, and then the 3 stepchildren. That's a whole lot of people to feed. And I just wanted to share something with you, because I listened to your interview actually that you had with Darren Lacroix and Mark Brown on the Unforgettable presentation, and I was fascinated. It was such a beautiful interview, actually. So please, I encourage you to go watch it wherever you are. But I found out in the conversation that you lost a son, and right after this conversation, I didn't want to change this meeting with you, because when we had the exchange, I felt like there was something you wanted to share, and I didn't want to delay this. But right after, like, I'm going on a road trip to go to the funeral. My cousin passed away. He was 37. And the funeral will be tomorrow morning. And my aunt is inconsolable. She lost her eldest son. Okay. And I think losing a child, I don't have to tell you this, is the worst thing that could happen to a mother. I lost my sister just a year and a half ago. So I saw my mom losing her eldest daughter. Can you share? I know you cannot console a mother in that right now, but maybe
and now it's real and it's raw. For me, to be fair, also Samuel was my stepson.
Okay.
But Samuel I was with Samuel for 20 years. He died at the age of 30, literally, I think about a month after he turned 30. But like I mentioned before, everybody went to work on that Tuesday morning and all did their daily routines. But by the end of that night, we were looking into a body bag to identify him in an unforeseen accident. So you just don't know where your world takes you. Now, when I look back, because that's now been 15 years since Samuel's passed away, and it wouldn't, to be fair, it was one hell of a ride. There was, some, rocky moments, but I remember standing at the kitchen sink, and our son, Paul's and my son, who was so close to Samuel, we had 10 days at home after the funeral, and it was time now to go back to the real world. And we were looking out the kitchen window, and my husband was out looking out the window too. And PJ, our son, Paul Jr., he said, "That's it," because he only had one more year of high school. And he said, "That's it. I'm not going back. I'm done." What for? He saw no vision. He saw no hope. And I remember my husband, now this is, his son as well. And he said, "I've got to go back to work," he said, "because life is still out there. And the sun still will shine." with or without us.
Mm.
And he said, if I go back to work, my son, promise me that you will go back to school. But when you do go back, he said, live in the honor for someone that is not here to live it.
Mm.
And it changed.
Mm.
It just changed from anger and the why and the not fair to feeling, cruel and robbed.
Mm.
And I got to tell you, the most powerful moment I did, because PJ was just an average student.
Mm-hmm.
And he went back, and whatever he told himself, he went and had a conversation with his teachers. He said, I want tutors for this and for biology and for this and for maths, whatever. And we supported him wholeheartedly. And he changed overnight. And he ended up leaving high school and graduating, in the top few percent. And today he's a human behavioral scientist.
Mm.
And the teacher said, we never saw that coming.
Mm.
But when he got his degree, he made a copy and he went to the cemetery and he placed it at Samuel's.
Oh.
So he lived in his honor
Mm.
and did what he can't do, but he did it. And that, that made us realize that everything we ever do, we do for the people that aren't here, so that nothing was ever wasted.
Mm.
Nothing was ever wasted. And because we had a lot of children, they all did what they did well in life because of what they had gone through and what we all experienced because of it.
Mm.
And we will say, we thank Samuel for giving us, because we all went in directions. It was, I'd already purchased my tickets to do the course with Darren and Craig Valentine. I bought that 6 weeks before Samuel passed away.
Mm.
So after he passed away, I totally forgot that I had tickets to go to America. And, my husband said to me, and he's not a man of many words. That's why when he does say something, it's always profound. Because I said, that's it, I'm not going. I don't feel like going now. Not 6 weeks after the hell we've been through. He said, no. He said, you've got to go back. He said, you've got to come back to have the courage to tell your story. And I said, I can't. This is so hard. But he said, this is why you do it. Because it's going to be worth it. Anything hard is going to be worth it. And I remember, and there's a photo of me with the world champions. I'm all in black. They didn't know. And I was there for 10 days. And that was the start of my business when Samuel passed away.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ah.
So there's a lot comes from these tragedies. And now we see him in a different form. He's no longer water, he's ice, but he's still water in a different form. He's still life in a different form. And sure, things get, that little bit better every now and then. You get the memories, whether it be the birthday or the what ifs. You saw the person that he was prepared to propose to when he died, and she's moved on. You see all those things, but I'm not going to waste a life. I'm not going to waste the life that's been given to me. Not when one was taken. I'm not going to waste the opportunity that we still have here. So we don't live in guilt, more in purpose because of it. Because of it. And I will not, and I've seen all my children have excelled at everything because of it. We will not waste what we have learnt because of it. So that's why, there's so many things that have guided me to the signs of you need to be where you need to be to help others. And even there, when I get my dark moments, I'm real, I'm human. When dark things happen, and then all of a sudden I'll get a call. Somebody wants to be coached, and it takes me down another path of, remember, this is your purpose. This is why you are who you are. Now, when I went to, at the funeral, my husband said, I can't do it. I cannot do this eulogy. He said, I will tell you what I want to put in it. But he said, I want you to do it for me and be my voice. Now, can you see all the benefits from that 8-year-old girl that has given me that voice? You know, to find my own journey, to help, you know, to help others, and to be the voice of someone else. And, you know, the one thing that Samuel left us was just enjoy your life. That's what he was always about, keeping life simple. And we all do that in our family. And, you know, every time my son PJ does something and an achievement, you'll see it at his grave when you go there to visit. There was a time when he was wanting to earn money, and he would clean people's driveways, and he made a brochure and he would put it in the letterbox. The first one he went to was Samuel's grave, and he put that brochure there. So he's now part of us in a different form.
That is beautiful. Oh, Jennifer, I'll keep you here all day for you, all night for me. But finally, if someone would like to find out more about you or hire you as a coach, as a speaker, what is the best way, please, to reach you?
You could either email me, jennifer@jenniferleone.com.au, or you could do it through my website, which is jenniferleone.com.au as well. And often I'll do a complimentary call with you first to see what are your purposes and how could I be that person. You know, we've got to make sure that I'm the right fit for you as well, and that you are the right fit for me, so that I can bring out the best in you. You know, and it helps that if you're coachable. So sometimes I've had only a few people that weren't coachable, or they were all about their ego, and I've made it very clear in my values that I won't work with people with egos. I'm not that coach. But if you have that sincerity to want to help others because of what you've done or overcome or have achieved, then I'll move heaven and earth to make that story and unfold all of your story, so that your purpose and that meaning, you want people to walk away and go, wow, when he said or when she said this or that, man, it changed it for me. And that's what I've got to find in your story. There'll be little parts of the story that somebody in that room will just latch on and go, wow, you've just made a difference to me. So that's, that's what I'm prepared to do. A lot of my clients are overseas, so it still works well on Zoom and doing the calls, doing on deliveries. And, you know, I've got people in Toastmasters where I prepare them for their speeches that are doing, you know, extremely well as well. And for a lot of them, they also enjoy the process, because I love to teach them why I do what I do, so you can understand how people think when they hear your story. We've got to understand the twofold, where people are coming from that hear you, and, you know, what do they really do want from you. So, you know, I'll do that as well. So yeah, I'm happy to take, you know, discovery calls and take it from there, see where it goes. Yeah.
Wonderful. Oh, let me share some main takeaways.
And I have to say, you are very few people that I felt comfortable to say what I needed to say. And I've not said that. I've never been in the right arena where I could share some of that story, because it isn't about the actual story. It's about the journey and the blessings that came from it. That's all it is for me now. And I've not had many avenues where that could come out. So I thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, Jennifer. Like, it's not my interview, so I won't get into it, but I needed to hear everything you said. So I think we met because I needed to hear your message, and I'm hoping
and you came at the right time, at the right time when I found that photo. So
Let me just share a few of my main takeaways, and then I will ask you if you have one last story you'd like to share before we leave each other. Main takeaways. Don't try to be the best in the world. Try to see how you can be the best for the world. If you're struggling right now, don't stay silent and obedient. Find your voice and use it, please. Save yourself, free yourself, release the burden. And also, if you've been struggling with some traumatic experience, try to reset and ask, how did it serve you? And yeah, ask what were the benefits that came from this horrible experience that you went through. And I love them. That was so powerful when you said you were mentioning this older gentleman, and you asked him, what would you have done if your so-and-so, in this case it was father, but if your father would have stayed, well, who would you have become? And look at the entire experience and try to find a way to become grateful for it. And you don't have to live in your past. Work on yourself, work through whatever you need to work through. Your audience will see it, and you are worth it. Know what you want and who you are. Don't live in guilt, live in purpose. And my all-time favorite, wear your own apron. Whew, what an honor, Jennifer. I feel so blessed for this every single one of the minutes. Is there one last story you'd like to share with us? Or last words, maybe?
I think the last story, and I do mention it in Darren's because it's so profound, and I still can't get over it. And it was of a woman that I worked with in the States, who again, her mother had abandoned her as well. And here she was, a woman now ready to leave work and retire. And in her retirement, she had worked for about 30 judges throughout her career, very knowledgeable woman, and wanted to help other women who, whether they'd been kicked out of home or been abused, or just didn't have any refuge, or they're homeless. Like, she wanted to help them because she knew the system in the States and how she could help them, but she also wanted to inspire them. But she thought, I'll tell them my story, because she said, my story is quite unique, but at the same time, they will see how I've overcome my story. So when I worked with her, I also was surprised how her mother had a drinking problem and depression, and had abandoned her and her two sisters. She happened to be the youngest of the two, but the two sisters, when the mother abandoned them, was old enough to leave and live on their own. Whereas here she was, quite a young girl, I think about 10, had to be palmed off. And she goes to live with a minister and his wife. And they teach her about her faith. They love her as their own. And she goes on, and they support her with her education. And as I said, she does well working with the judges and so forth. But every now and then the mother would ring and torment her. And she wouldn't do it to the two sisters, because they would, cut her off very quickly. Because she had a Christian background now, she thought it's the Christian thing to do, to not close the door on her. And all this woman wanted to know was, why? Why did you leave me? How could you do this? And she never, ever gave her the answer that she was looking for. So when she gets the phone call that her mother now is in hospice, and she called the youngest daughter to come to her. Now, the older daughters go, heck no, stuff that. No way. And she went, no, I can't. It's just not in me. I still got to go. Now, she still had the regret, and she still had the anger, but she goes only because of obedience. And the Christian thing was, well, whether it's her or whether it's someone else off the street, I got to do the right thing. And she thought, great, now she's going to tell me when she's going to die why she left me. Well, she can tell me any story. So this is where she was coming from. She thought, oh, damn, she's going to just tell me, whatever it is to keep her mind in peace before she dies. So her mother gives her the key to her trailer. And she said, I want you to clean it and sell it. That's it. And then the daughter says, well, I want to know why you left. And she said, I'm ready to tell you. And she said, I knew you would be better off without me.
Oh.
That's it. And she passed away. Now, her two sisters says, don't clean the trailer, blow that. No, why do we have to clean up her crap after what she's done for us? And she still thought, no, this is the right thing, but I'm so angry that that's all you left me was the fact you thought we were better off. She felt robbed and she felt so angry. And she was so reluctant to go to that trailer. And when she goes to that trailer and she sees the outside of the trailer, it was atrocious because she was a hoarder.
Oh.
And she walks into the trailer and she said she had to cover her mouth. The stench, the filth. There were dead rats. There were skeletons of rats. That's how bad this trailer was. And she said she spent the whole day in anger, angry that she was dumped with this task, and the fact that her mother never really gave her the answer she was looking for. And she cleans the trailer, but she said there were bags and bags of rubbish she took out. And she finally sat on her bed, her mother's bed, and she felt something under her feet. It was boxes. So when she looked under the bed, she sees 3 suitcases. Now, obviously, it would all be curious. And when she opened every lid of the suitcases, they were identical. Each bag had the name of each daughter in each bag. And in each bag, every conversation this mother had, whether it would be writing a message on a napkin to her daughter that she never saw, she would place it in each of these bags, suitcases. And she even had cuttings from if she saw that they were in the newspaper for a sports achievement or something.
Oh my God.
So the woman lived the life of never seeing these 3 children, but she had every little memory that she had equally in every one of the bags. Then she found cash. She said it was a few $1,000, $4,000 in each bag, cash. So she was surprised with that. Then she finds a bank book in each of the suitcases. And when she goes to the bank, each one of these bank books had $100,000 in each.
Whoa.
This woman lived in squalor,
Oh.
in filth. And the only thing she had in that trailer of order was 3 suitcases. Now, when she's telling me, the client's telling me the story, she's saying like, wow, amazement. I'm seeing how symbolic this is. This is so symbolic. And then I just said to her, you were never forgotten. Each and every one of you had your own bag. Out of all the things of chaos in this trailer, there was order in those 3 bags. And I said, and where do you think that money came from? On the day her father died, the mother abandoned him. But the insurance money she never spent.
Whoa.
And I said, can you see that you were loved equally? Equally. And that you were never forgotten. And that's when she cried and cried.
Oh my God.
I said, what had your mother stayed? Look around you. What life would you have had living here? Would you be who you are today? And that's when she realized she was right and she was truthful when she said, I knew you would be better off without me. And she was. And she just kept saying, thank you. I'm so grateful. And I said, could you see How did that money help you? And would it paid off our house? How did that help you? Gave us peace of mind. I could now do what I want to do, and I can now retire. I said, she helped you in the way she knew how. And she loved you in the way she knew how. And that was the half of the story that wasn't yet told. It got to be told, you know, with now more depth and gratitude and more understanding as well. And I've just never forgotten it, that out of all the chaos, this woman, all those years, had little conversations and wrote them on napkins and put them in each of those bags.
Oh my God.
And she never touched, and she never touched the money that was theirs, and that's how she could help them. Now, you know, sadly, the two sisters didn't want to see it that way, and that's their prerogative. But she now saw she actually was loved, but in her own way, in the way the mother knew how.
Oof. It's the most beautiful story I've ever heard.
It is, and it's, I've just never forgotten it.
Yes.
I've just never forgotten, as tormented as the mind was for this woman. That was the only place she had order, and the only way she could take care of them. That's why she gave her the key, because she knew she'd be the one to be obedient and not fight back. So she also knew her children. She also knew her children.
She did. Otherwise, the trailer would have been burnt.
That's right. Well, she would have had people come in. She would have paid people, cleaners, to come in,
and they would have kept it or something.
And they would have won, you know, a lot of. They would have, when they found the suitcases. Yeah. So that's why I love what I do, because the stories that I get to hear, are amazing.
Yeah. What an honor, Jennifer. Thank you. I feel so blessed. And
thank you. And thank you for allowing me this opportunity, because I don't often say, you know, tell all my stories.
Yes, and they're worth hearing, let me tell you. Thank you for your trust.
Thank you. But it was also, I've had to work through them. So they weren't always ready to be told. I had to work through them.
And dear friend, thank you for watching this conversation until the end. I hope getting to know this wonderful lady has touched you as much as it has touched me. And I will leave you with this: the power of your voice can change the world. Find it and use it. See you in the next video. Bye.